It's exciting to have you join us on a fresh edition of Africa Discuss, and we sincerely apologize for starting this edition behind schedule. I'm Philip Omo Gupon, the host on this edition of Africa Discuss, and as you know, we center on Africa as a continent that is pivotal. When we talk about reposition in the world, we must talk about Africa as a continent, and if Africa is not figured in that equation, then the world won't be balanced. Well, looking at today's topic, which is centering on the African Union and ECOWAS summit, looking at the ways in combating terrorism and illiberalism, I have to discuss this very sensitive topic with me, starting from my extreme left. I have a security expert, as the CEO of the Sapphire Shield Security and Safety Awareness Initiative, and he is Reverend Dr. Sheriff Azeke. Thanks for joining me, Sheriff.
Thank you for having me. Good day, viewers.
And next to him is an economic expert, an economist in the whole. And he is a lecturer in the University of Benin. He is Dr. Presley Osemigye. Thanks for joining me, Presley.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Philip. Good afternoon, viewers.
Good to know that we still have the opportunity to have you on set, and in spite of the challenges facing us.
Exactly.
All right. Well, as you know, we always have to tackle issues as they come, irrespective of the challenges Nigeria faces as the giant of Africa, and of course other countries. We have Burkina Faso, we have Mali, Sudan, and Guinea as countries in Africa that are submerged in military system of government. And that, as it is, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, paid a visit to Ghana last Saturday to really look at issues concerning the ECOWAS summit that was held in the Jubilee House in Ghana, Accra. And the pivotal issue that was on discourse was on how to find a lasting solution to Mali as a country that is still under the military government, the political situation in that country, and how to bring respite, how to bring a constitutional system of government up in Mali. You agree with me that those countries, Mali, Guinea, and all that transpired concerning Burkina Faso and Sudan in military takeover has been a very big headache to the African continent. And penultimate weekend back, we had also the president paying a visit to the Equatorial Guinea capital, Malabo, to also look at the 16th Extraordinary Summit, where issues concerning how to tackle terrorism and, of course, illiberalism, on constitutional system of government was also the focus. And looking at this as it is, I start with you, the security expert with us, Sheriff Azeke. You have been following antecedents, issues concerning how Africa has been trying to tackle aspect of terrorism. As a security expert, what do you see as the present page we are in as a continent? Do you see the challenges we are faced in that respect abating or worsening?
Yes, it's not abating really. It's getting worse every day. And Africa as a continent, really security is not a localized issue. It's a globalized issue. And Africa as a continent is a kind of direction to insecurity. America in the time past was a focus in terms of world power. Europe, the same thing. Now, the focus is now on Asia, China particularly. But I see Africa coming last as a focus. The whole world will soon look at Africa for so many things. And for this reason, the leaders in Africa, they not really see it from that angle that they need to put their house in order before that time comes, because Africa is going to be the last lap in terms of direction in development and the rest. And that is why you see the insecurity issue in Africa is becoming very alarming to destabilize the continent, to make sure that the Africa as a continent is backward. But the leaders need to come together, think together like what they are doing presently. They need to be very proactive in the area of addressing insecurity. And when we talk about insecurity, the major aspect of it is insurgency, that is terrorism. And if you carefully watch right now, terrorism is spreading in Africa. And if care is not taken, it will hold a strong grip in Africa. And it will be very difficult for development to really surface in Africa.
Yeah, because when we talk about development, economic development, and all other sectors, you know, that will bring about this development, you can't but still emphasize on security, because security is pivotal, you know, in terms of bringing about respite in all of these sectors. Well, that's just a tip of the iceberg on the show Africa Discuss, and we're going to be taking a short break, after which we're going to be joined by a political analyst, Fred Uyigwe. Do stay. Thank you for joining me once more. While we had a break, we were opportunity to be joined by a political analyst and one-time governorship aspirant, or two-time rather, governorship aspirant in the 2012 and 2016 governorship race in Edo State. He is a public affairs analyst and also a political, a business expert in this field. And he is Honorable Fred Uyigwe. Thanks for joining us, Fred.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to you viewers.
Okay, I think the pendulum now swings to Presley, Dr. Presley. You are a lecturer and you are an economist, and there are issues where the United Nations Human Rights Office did say raised an alert, and a very sad one indeed, where it said that in 3 months' time, we're going to be having about 18 million people in Africa facing food insecurity. That as it is, we don't know the position of the governments in Africa, how they are really pacing up to really avert such a very negative trend that is being brought up by the United Nations office. What do you make of this?
Okay, thank you. I think that the UN actually came up with that statistics, 18 million.
Okay.
You know, as a result of the war in Russia and also in Ukraine.
Okay.
And again, the insurgency and terrorism, you know, in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. They rarely gave that warning the African leaders to prepare ahead, you know, to ensure that adequate, you know, structure and policy are put in place, you know, to address this ugly trend. You know, that's, you know, by the side. Now, I will give it up to African Development Bank, the president. A lot has been done by him, you know, using, you know, different, you know, policies to ensure that the climate, you know, change affecting Africa is being addressed, you know, by providing, you know, drought-resistant seedlings, you know, to farmers in Africa in general, so that they can, you know, boost food supply, you know, to meet, you know, the demand, you know, for food. But that is not enough. African leaders must take a conscious and a deliberate, you know, approach to ensure that they make provisions, you know, to address the incoming, you know, hunger. Philip, I must tell you, it's very devastating. If you allow the issue of insecurity, you know, violent extremism to continue in Africa, our farmers will not be able to go to farm and plant. You know, already we have a sufficient stats showing that about 23, you know, people already has been displaced as a result of 23 million in Africa, I beg your pardon, you know, have been displaced as a result of, you know, flooding and drought, and additional 14 million again as a result of fighting, you know, due to the fighting, communal clashes and what have you. Now, farmers cannot endeavor to go to farm, cannot produce, and the farm produce that is being produced, they cannot have access to them. Now, if this ugly trend is not being tackled, like I said, consciously and deliberately by leaders in Africa, man, the worst days ahead of us.
Let's assess the aspect of democracy in Africa. And Fred Uyigwe, you happen to be a politician and a political analyst in Dublin in that offices. Now, we have this challenge where we zero back to where the Thomas Hobbes theory of the origin of the state came up, where it said that life becomes short, nasty, and brutish if there is no government. And it was tagged the Hobbesian pattern of life. And looking at that as it is, looking at the origin of the state, the institutions of government. Now, Africa has embraced this system of government called democracy. And it's expected that at least this would also help, in helping African countries, really reach out to liberating the people or ameliorating the situation they are faced with. I remember vividly in one of our News and Current Affairs program when it gets said that democracy is no longer known as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Simply put, it's now government of the elected, by the delegates, and for the elected. So what do you make of that, Fred?
Thank you for that question. Democracy, to my mind, and to the mind of most political scholars, is the best form of government, of all forms of government. There are optional forms of government. There's monarchy, the monarchical form of government. There is oligopoly, and there are other, forms of governments by groups of people.
The African Union on Saturday held a summit on terrorism and unconstitutional change.
There's the dictatorial form of government, as we see in the Soviet Union. Democracy, as Alexander Pope put it, said for forms of government, let fools contend. What is best administered is best. So it's not just having a form of government, but having a government that has institutions and systems that would be functional to benefit the people. What we have, or what we aspire to have, is that form of government that's it's near perfection, that is able to capture the aspirations and the interests of those who make up the society in which the government is run. In Africa, we had traditional forms of government prior to colonization. And with colonization, and one after the other, we have come to see the merits of this democracy over the monarchical system of government, which was prevalent in Africa. And so, nation after nation have embraced democracy. Now we are practicing democracy. But we are having to struggle with it because the mindset hasn't quite changed from the monarchical system of government that we operated in comparison to what we are embracing. In one case, we are looking at cultures, we are looking at traditions, we are looking at government, we are looking at people who have been, who are there because of their age. And in the other sense, in the case of democracy, we are looking at the interests of groups of people. So for us to be able to make advances, there are two forms of government that one can have. Either you have one that is with a written constitution, or one with an unwritten constitution, in which case they have norms. They follow the norms, what they practiced over time and recorded over time, precedents.
Yeah.
So, but most modern democracies adopt the written system of government.
Yes.
That is why, For example, we have the Constitution.
Okay.
We have the Constitution now to guide us.
Okay, you still have the floor, but I asked you that question in order to bring about this other question, because we are seeing, like in Sudan, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea is being overtaken by the military system of government. And this happens to be, countries that really welcomes democracy. But it seems those who were put in power, by the people, seem not to work towards really helping to ameliorate the situation that the people really faced. Now the question is, we are gradually taken to illiberalism in Africa. What do you think? Because the people will say that the government seems to have failed them, but without resorting to chaos in order not to have the obedient pattern of life. What do you think the people should do in putting back the right governance in power?
We must go back to the root cause of these conflicts. The root cause right here in Africa is poverty. Because of the acute poverty that is pervasive in Africa, you find that those who make up the electorate are easily induced, swayed, to go against their best conscience. Okay. What they will have to do, it's a reorientation, and that will really require a willing government, the willingness of leaders in Africa to say, look, we need a reorientation to be able to understand and appreciate the essence of government in the first place. That here in Africa, many people are still of the opinion that those elected are elected to rule over them rather than to lead them. So there's a difference between rulership.
Okay.
In the case of rulership, you have despotism, dictatorial. You have a dictatorial form of governance. Whereas in the case of leadership, you walk by consensus, you walk by compromise, you walk by negotiations, you walk by harmonization of interests. So that is where everybody wants to be able to harmonize everybody's interests so that there will be peace.
Okay.
If everybody feels that his interest is captured in the decisions that are taken or in the programs that are projected, then they will begin to have a sense of belonging to the whole.
Okay.
And that is what is missing. And to be able to do that, you have to consciously, deliberately have programs to reorient the people.
Let's quickly criticize the sustained extraordinary summit that took place in the Equatorial Guinea capital, Malabo, penultimate weekend, where the president, Muhammadu Buhari, also attended. Now, the visuals that was shown us, if we can go back to that visuals again, spoke about, also featured the president of Angola, Mahamat Faki Mausa, who also is the head of the AU Commission.
Okay.
Now, he spoke about the need also to visit the Accra Declaration, which also spoke on the aspect of guiding the information that is in the social media. Now, as a security expert, we had this challenge in Nigeria where NSAS protests came up, and it was almost having a very negative toll. It had a negative toll, in governance. Now, how can government manage a huge army that may be formed from the youth to resist governance? Because gradually, the people seem to be tired of the present government functionaries and the system of governance. So don't you think there should be a way out, and how can we manage this crisis that may be formed by the youthful army?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the major problem in Africa or Africa presently is leadership. The time we get it right from the angle of leadership, to a lot of things will be taken care of. And the issue of answers, you could see what happened at that moment. It's like the government have not learned much from that event.
And it also happened in Sudan,
yes,
in Mali.
You don't underrate the youth, the young people. The fact that you don't see them coming up in government does not mean that they are not powerful. Just like what is happening presently, this ASU issue. Now, the students are locked at home because of ASU and government issue, all boiled down to money. And the money we are talking about is for the betterment of the schools, education. Because when education issue is interrupted, there will be insecurity. And what I'm going to say here right now is like stopping the student from going to school. You have already admitted them in the workshop of the devil. Because he said the idle mind is the devil's workshop. Now, these young people, they cannot bear the way the elders could bear. They cannot tolerate certain things. There's a level in which they will stay at home. They will no longer be comfortable with that environment because right now, their society is not in the house. The society is already in the school environment. You've taken them away from the society. And you think that all is well presently. They're already in the devil's workshop. And the devil is teaching them what to do. And if care is not taken, I'm telling you, we are talking about insecurity. We look at insurgency. What is coming if government is not proactive to handle this issue of ASU? If what is coming, the government will not be able to handle it. They are demanding for some billions of naira, which the government can easily pay. If this government value education, and education is part of the society, is part of security, if they really value education, it won't take them anything if it has to do with go and borrow anywhere. Borrow to settle this thing so that our young people will be in school. Sir, listen, now they're at home, doing what? Doing nothing. They are just in the social media. One day, when they are fed up in staying at home, something will just work within them. They will come out. NSAS, what we saw in NSAS is just a kind of plaything. What they will do at this time, if care is not taken, the money they are looking for, the damage they will cause that very day, it will be times 10 of what they are demanding for.
Okay, basically that could be the possible reasons why leaders at the African Union level, having this 16 extraordinary summit. Some critics are saying that they've had up to 16 extraordinary summits, and they will have several. And you could see the gathering of presidents, of countries, and these presidents of countries, gather to discuss all of these issues in order to ameliorate the situation in Africa. Do you see any possible respite coming from all of this summit being organized by the African Union?
It is one thing to meet. It's another thing to practicalize what you have discussed. Because they keep on meeting, they keep on talking. But the action aspect of it, the practicalization of it, is not there. We are tired of all these summit that does not bring much impact. Whatever they decide in the summit, if they can practicalize it, I think there will be much results in whatever they are doing.
Okay, let's look at what is up. The president attended the 16th Extraordinary Summit, and he also pledged to make a donation of $3 million. You know what that will amount to in Naira, for the agency being set up by the African Union, to combat terrorism in Africa. What do you make of that development by the president of Nigeria?
Okay, in as much I may consider that development a welcome one, but let us not forget, something very critical. What actually led to the Accra Declaration was when EU came up with a reflection forum, on unconstitutional change in government. The Accra Declaration was meant to address, two things. Number one, terrorism and violent extremism in Africa, and again to address unconstitutional changes in government or EU imperialism. Now, if you look at that declaration, it simply states that to prevent and end any form of own constitutional government in Africa, the all stakeholders using every possible means. And again, the declaration had 28 steps.
Yes, of course.
And most of those steps, if you look at it clinically, they are very vague. They are not too clear. For example, the issue, the one you raised concerning social media.
Disinformation in the social media.
So how do you address that?
How do you address that?
It's a problem. It's a huge challenge. They also talk about sanction. Look at the four, countries now taken over by, military governments. Now again, how do you address the issue of sanction? Look at the sanction. Look at what sanction has cost to, the entire Europe, which also rubbing on Africa between just Russia and Ukraine. Now, Russia and Ukraine are, they are sneezing. The entire, Africa, they are coughing. They are in problem. They are in dilemma. See the impact that, single, fight, war is having, the toll on Africa and in Nigeria. Now, let me come back to the question you raised about the money. Like I said, it's not just about the money.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. And I don't mind he said it's a devil workshop. Before I bring in leadership, let us look at the value we place on human in Africa setting. Do we really place value in human in Africa? What is the purpose of leadership? The purpose of leadership is to address the welfare of the individual. That's the purpose of leadership. To address the welfare. That's why America can spend the entire billion to rescue a day-old child from any perilous or dangerous, situation. Look at the way they came when they kidnapped their own expatriate. Look at the way they send, their military might.
But don't forget that's a developed polity. So there's more difference between developed and a developing polity.
It's ideology, my brother. It's ideology. The problem is Africa is self-centered. We are selfish. Our idea is to galvanize in our pocket, and we are not interested in the development of the individuals.
Okay, do you agree with what Honorable Federal Igwe said, that is as a result of the borrowed system of government that we practice, because we still used to believe in the primordial, and that could be the reason why we are still dragging?
No, like the issue that was raised, on the issue of when you define, democracy.
Yes, of course.
That's a mere hypothesis that not be subjected to empirical, validation before we can accept that definition. What I know.
What definition are you talking about? Because I'm mentioning of two definitions, simple definitions.
Yes.
The one by the elected, and also the one by the people.
Acceptable.
Which one is not acceptable? Both of them are.
By the elected, you said.
Okay, by the elected. But that seems to be what is happening now in the African democracy.
Well, like I said, it has not been subjected to empirical, verification. To test, you must test that. But what we know is the government of the people by the people, for the people. And that's what it should be. And that's how it should be. Not until we come to that point where democracy is seen addressing the welfare of an individual. Let me give you a shocker. In a society today, in Africa in particular, people are raised to survive.
Okay.
Now, if an individual is raised to survive, such individual may have problem to love. They will have problem to relate properly with people.
Okay.
Because there is hunger in the land. You can't imagine a man has not eaten, in a day to think well.
You seem to be supporting, sorry to cut in, you seem to be supporting the other definition, simple definition. Because in case you don't know what I said, the people are annoyed that the definition of democracy simply, as government of the people, by the people, and for the people, has been changed.
Yes.
Now, the government is no longer focusing on the people, but it now seems like a government, elected by the delegates, yes, and for the elected. That is to say, for those who are in power, and no longer for the people. And what you just said seemed to buttress that. Are you not saying that the people, the leaders, are rather, attending to the people and not for themselves?
Like I said, I am not against the definition. What I said, the point I'm trying to raise, the definition you gave was an impression.
I didn't give it. It's a postulation by one of the guests in the News and Current Affairs program on ITV.
There is a mere postulation. It has not been subjected to empirical verification for us to accept it.
Okay, but are you not saying that the leaders are doing implementing policies to the benefit of the people they represent?
Not at all. African leaders are failed. That's what I said. I said a simple analogy or idea, the ideal situation about democracy is that it must have an impact on a single individual.
Okay.
How many people have been impacted upon by democracy? Not Now, somebody was saying, that didn't bring in military, interference.
Yes.
So it's an analogy. I was going to bring in military. Why did the military came on board? Because they felt that
the civilians are not doing the best.
They don't do well. There was high volume of
that's always the reason they use in coming to power.
So that's why they came. But yet, even in democracy as it stands today, the one we practice in Africa, it has not been able to impact on the people. Not until there is a reflection on the people. That people are benefiting from democracy. For me, what have I gained? Democracy. ASU is on strike on a simple demand. Agreed and signed and enter and see.
And if you ask me,
they cannot. No, hold on.
Okay.
They could not keep a simple agreement that was with a gentlemanly agreement that was signed and see. And a lot of children today are suffering. Imagine that. Now, these same people you are saying that we should entrust the entire Africa security apparatus in their hands. The incoming 18 million that will be estimated by African Union or the hunger ahead. All they're simply interested in just for their own pocket and for their own children. Imagine somebody who stole 80 billion, an additional 90 billion.
Okay.
My God.
I know basically you are pained as a lecturer and a member of ASU in the very fact that we still have this challenge in the educational sector that is dragging all other sectors backward.
Exactly.
Now, I asked you that question because $3 million as pledged by the president. A critic who is a member of your union may say that the president would be doing a wrong thing to do that when it has not even settled ASU what it owes. So that was why I asked you that question. So can you ventilate your opinion in that regard?
No, I wouldn't say what the president has done is a misplaced priority. No.
Okay.
Because security, whether I would like it or not, is part of development.
Okay.
Where there is insecurity, development will not foster. There will be problem, there will be chaos, all of that. But my problem is, how do we utilize this money? How is this money being used? It's not just a pledge. How is money being used to address insecurity? Let's come back home. Look at our budget. Billions, trillions have been estimated for security defense. Today we still have, sad issues of, insecurity and fighting and senseless killing. Look at the one happening over.
Sad.
Again, look at more recently, just Abuja Estate. People enter, bandits enter. Took the entire people in the estate, I think majority of the estate, and took them freely. Imagine where are we in this country? And yet billions are being voted. Look at the appropriation bill also raised. Look at it again. Security vote is also there. What are they doing with security vote and so much money? My challenge is not the money that's been assigned. How is this money being deployed? How is it being used? Let's come back to the issue of ASU. Like I said, I will not condemn the money that was the $3 million that the president
pledged, not donated, pledged.
I will not go against that. But what I'm saying, let's come back home. Has he been able to fulfill the promise that the government, though he may argue that it was not his time, that the government entered into by ASU? And it's so saddening and so despicable that the number 3 man, Lawal, came up to say that government was, bamboozled by ASU. It's so in a civilized country like this, for number 3 man to say that the agreement that was entered, that ASU forced government to enter into that agreement, it's disappointing.
It's saddening. It's saddening. I mean, yes. And I must say,
it's an indictment to previous government.
Yes.
Government is continuing.
It's saddening. It's saddening. Why I allow you to digress, but that is not the purpose for this discussion.
Exactly.
So let's keep that in the pocket and see how we can forge ahead. Now, we have this issue where, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and other presidents, the Angola president, they are all looking at the way forward, in fortifying, because there's already joint forces, in the African military, to fight against Al-Shabaab, ISIS, Boko Haram, and other terrorist groups. What do you see as still lacking in the African continent? Because the Angola president, as he is saying now, the Angola president did say that Africa leaders should pay less to depending on foreign mercenaries, as in mercenaries. They should focus on, mercenaries outside of Africa.
Yes.
They should focus on, building the military within Africa. Now, but if you ask the average African, coupled with the way, African leaders have been doing, in terms of underscoring their performance, they may say, or the average African may say, that would be like, squeezing water out of stone. Do you concur?
No.
Okay.
Because I believe that the problem of terrorism has taken on a new dimension. It has taken on, it has become so thorny an issue on the different societies that make up the continent. And this problem of terrorism is not something that is now local or regional. It has become global. There are acts of terrorism going on all around the world that in times past, one could look to the developed nations for assistance. But now they seem themselves to be caught up with terrorist attacks and terrorist activities that they have to curtail within their borders. So that brings us back to Africa. We have to now look inwards. The ingenuity in the cooperation of nations to combat terrorism is in the fact that when a terrorist group rises in any one country, it is going to understand from the beginning that it can, if it were even built up to overwhelm that country, that is going to have to resist the entire continent. There will be times when some countries will seem to be vulnerable, weak maybe because of financial problems, or even manpower problems, or equipment problems. When I mean equipment problems, I'm talking of kinetic resources for combating terrorism. But when you know that there are other countries that could be of help, then you are rest assured that yes, you'll be able to put down the terrorism that is rising from your backyard. It's like when we in Nigeria had to go to Liberia, ECOWAS. Nigeria had a lot of resources, very disciplined military at the time, and we were able to go there and do what was required to do, stabilize the place. But Nigeria today is faced with our own terrorist problems. You cannot expect another country today, with a smaller country, let me say, with terrorist problems, to hope that Nigeria will come to their rescue, like we did in the case of ECOWAS. Because now we are even overwhelmed by our own internal problems. But when you now situate the solution in the corporate body of the African nations, then you have a better chance to stabilize each region, because it is not foreseeable that there will be conflagrations throughout the continent at the same time.
Okay.
So when the countries come together, then they are going to benefit from the synergy of pulling together
the countries in Africa.
Yes, pulling together their resources and their expertise.
Okay. While you still have the floor, don't forget that
Yes.
Africa as a continent is a sister continent to other continents of the world.
Yes.
You know, and looking at that as it is, let's criticize again the statement credited to Muhammad Faki, the Angola president. Do you see the fact that he said that African leaders or countries should not depend on foreign assistance, but rather build the African military. Do you see that as taking it away, that there shouldn't be relations with the developed countries? Because we can't but also rely on that.
No. Look, what really makes one society superior to another in most indices, indices that you may want to consider, is technology.
Technology.
Okay?
Which comes from the advanced countries.
Whether you're talking about agriculture,
yeah,
you're talking about military might, you're talking about industries. The difference, most times, is the difference in technology.
Which is dominant in developed politics.
Yes. So, when the Angolan president advanced that Africa should look inwards,
okay,
it is because of the notion that it is going to be increasingly difficult to expect assistance from outside the continent. But since we are here together with shared problems, because should there be any serious problem, for example, should there be a dislocation of Nigeria, all the neighboring countries would suffer immensely because of our very huge population. Okay? So the earlier we all come together to say, look, we cannot afford for Nigeria to be dislocated, the better. Or we cannot afford for any neighboring countries to be dislocated. We have seen example of what happened to the neighbors of Ukraine. They had to take in millions of refugees that they didn't plan for, that wasn't in their annual budget. See, all those are potential dislocating and destabilizing issues.
Okay.
That one has to begin to be proactively prepared against.
All right.
So, in the Angola's president's suggestion, yes, I think he has made a very good suggestion, because the point I want to make here is that we might not be where we want to be when we start out together. We will hope that along with having military formations and all of that, that we will also have a program to develop our arms and ammunition industry, so that in Africa we can begin to produce our warplanes, we can begin to produce our drones, we can begin to produce our guns and our ammunition. Guns and our ammunition, for example, is what I will call, or what I will call, very basic
factor.
Technology requirements. Okay, to be able to manufacture, because there's nothing too sophisticated about them.
Okay. Thank you. We have Sheriff. What do you think about this? Because same question I asked Honorable Freddie Igwe. I'm asking. Do you think the president, Angola President Faki, meant to say that developed countries relating with African countries shouldn't be emphasized on?
Yeah, I think.
And if it is, do you see that as what will augur well for African countries?
Well, it's a welcome development to an extent by building a force within the African region. Okay. So that we don't depend on the Western world. Because when it comes to security, the time they fail, by depending on them, there will be catastrophe in our land. Okay. Because when you are depending on somebody, at the end of the day, the person is not giving you what you want.
Dependence is relative.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think the president was saying as in to be solely dependent. I think that's what he meant. That African countries should be solely dependent. Because if you say that the relations with the other continents shouldn't be emphasized, it means we are going to lock ourselves out of civilization and out of technology. Because it seems to us that technology flows from the developed to the developing.
I don't think he's calling for total cut-off.
Okay.
It's not calling for total cut-off. I think we need to begin to develop our own military might in the African region in case there is something that happens in any of these countries, like the ECOWAS and so on and so forth. They can address it even without bringing the foreign powers into the picture. And again, the security issue of Africa is very, very paramount in the development of Africa. Because without security, there's nothing you can do. Security is oxygen. Without oxygen, you can't survive. No development, nothing thrive in the absence of insecurity.
So what are your nudges for African countries?
Putting your effort in the militarizing the system,
okay.
I think they should focus again on the issue of good leadership and the economy and the people, good welfare for the people. Because when there is good welfare for the people, to an extent, insecurity will be reduced to the barest minimum.
Okay.
Because when you have food to eat, I have food to eat, you have what I want, I have what you want, there's no need for you to attack me or attack you. And the issue of, let's go down to Nigeria, because they say charity begins from home. What is happening in Nigeria now is heartbreaking and heart-shaking. Every day you hear people being killed. This insurgency, they are increasing in their numbers. They are not reducing. They are coming from every corner. Yesterday there was heavy kidnapping, even in Delta here. I woke up this morning with a call of kidnapped persons. And this morning, you hear what my brother said about going to a place, an estate, and in Abuja, the heart of Nigeria. Okay. You see, they are showing it so vividly. And, and I want to say, sorry, what happened at Owo yesterday is enough for us to sit down and begin to think. It's not about the church.
All right, thank you.
It's about the life.
Thank you, thank you. Your final wrap on this.
What I want to say is that African leaders should have a genuine and deliberate attempt to address the insecurity in Africa. Coming together as one continent to address regional, interregional security or interstate or multinational agencies is very important. Yeah, okay. Although we have the 5G existing already and it's
yes, of course.
They are already there.
And don't you think there's huge development in that regard?
No.
Looking at the efforts
have we?
Okay.
Even in Nigeria played impact. Even in West Africa, played impact. Even if you look recently in Congo, even the way you see Rwanda, they are trying to adopt Rwanda, effect in Congo recently. And it's but what I'm saying, the point I'm raising is that African leaders should look inward while looking for assistance, because no nation or continent lives in isolation. No, we must have this synergy. We must one in addressing the issue of insecurity. Remember, don't forget, and insecurity in one country, in a continent, will rob and affect other countries.
It has ripple effects. Yes, of course.
Addressed. That's the point. African leaders must have a genuine, deliberate, and conscious effort to address insecurity and also address hunger. Like he said, hunger is the major cause of insecurity.
Yes.
We must address hunger, because somebody who is raised, like I said, to survive can take 1,000 naira to feed his fellow human.
Thank you. Big thanks, Dr. Presley Osemigye. And big thanks, Reverend Dr. Sheriff Azeke. And of course, big thanks to you, Honorable Fred Uyigwe, for taking our time to be part of this show. We'll do this again, same time next week. I'm Philip Omo Gupon. Goodbye.